The following video contains stories from people who have almost been kidnapped. The source is scaryforkids.com. If you like the video, please don't forget to subscribe and show your support by hitting the thumbs up button as well. On with the stories. Number 1. Who are you? One evening, when I was about 8 or 9, I was walking home from school. My mom worked during the day and usually came home later in the evening. When I got to my house, I took the key out of my pocket to let myself in, but just as I reached up to put the key in the lock, the door suddenly opened. My mom was standing there in her dressing gown. Instead of greeting me, she looked straight past me and in a stern voice demanded, "Who are you?" I turned around just in time to see a man in a trench coat hurrying back down the path and taking off down the street. The fact that my mom was sick that day and stayed home from work probably saved me from a horrible fate. Number 2. Double Dutch. One night, my girlfriend and I were walking through the suburbs of Dublin. A truck stopped and a guy hopped out. He was acting all friendly, asking for directions. He sounded Dutch. Something struck me as odd about the whole thing, and it set me on edge. It seemed like he was trying to distract us. All of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted another man. He climbed out of the truck on the other side. He had gone all the way around the back of the truck and was trying to sneak up behind us. I quickly grabbed my girlfriend by the arm and walked straight towards the sneaky guy. He backtracked really quickly when he realized he had been seen. The first guy was all like, "Come on, we mean no harm." But he was also talking to the other guy in Dutch. My girlfriend just started running and I followed her. We didn't stop running until we were far away from the weird guys in their truck. That was when my girlfriend told me she understood Dutch. What they were saying to each other was, "This isn't going to work. Let's go." Number 3. Facebook Kidnapping. A 12-year-old girl from Europe got a friend request on Facebook. It was from one of her classmates at school. They chatted over Instant Messenger and he knew a lot of information about her and her school. He said he had been sick for a couple of days and asked her to bring him some books he needed for homework. She was on her way to his house when she was passing a parked car on the street and the door opened. A man got out and introduced himself as her friend's dad. He told her to get into the car and he would drive her to her friend's house. She didn't want to, but he insisted. Finally, he grabbed her by the hand and tried to force her in the car. However, the girl began to scream and the neighbors came out to see what it was all about. The man fled and the girl was in such panic she forgot to look at his license plate number. It turned out later that the Facebook profile had been fake. The man had followed the girl meticulously and knew everything about her. He knew where she lived, where she went to school, and which of her classmates had not been in school that day. Number 4. The Man in the Truck. When I was 14, I was waiting for the bus and this pickup truck pulled up beside me. The driver kept waving at me to come closer and he held up a map. It seemed like he wanted directions. I went over to the truck and he rolled the window down. I didn't realize what was happening until he reached out and tried to grab me by the hair. I dropped my bag and ran for it as he sped off. When I got home, I woke my mom and told her what happened. She flipped out. Then we looked out the window, surprise, surprise. The truck was sitting across the street and the man was sitting in the driver's seat, staring up at us. That's when I flipped out. My mom called the police and gave them a description, but the man drove off. Later on, the police called back to tell us they had pulled someone over and wanted me to take a look at him. They put me in the back of an unmarked patrol car with tinted windows and drove me past the guy who was being questioned outside his truck. It was him. I almost had a panic attack. They charged him with attempted kidnapping. It made all the local newspapers. The spot where they pulled him over was right in front of an elementary school. And then when they searched his truck, They found rope, duct tape, and an axe. Number 5. The Tall Man in the Park. When I was 15, my mother went out shopping and left me in charge of the house. It was starting to get dark out, and I realized my little brother was nowhere to be found. I asked my sister if she knew where he was, and she said he had gone to the park around the corner to kick his football around. I told her to watch the house while I was gone and ran off in the direction of the park. When I got there, I was surprised to find the park completely empty. I called out my brother's name and there was no answer. I started to get worried. All of a sudden, I heard a faint, muffled noise coming from my left. I turned just in time to see a tall figure disappearing behind a large fence. I sprinted as fast as I could, and when I came around the other side of the fence, I saw something that almost made me choke in horror. My little brother was being dragged down the alleyway by a tall man. I flew into a rage and tears of anger streamed down my face. I ran at him, and he must have heard me coming because he turned around to face me and dropped my younger brother. The tall man tried to grab me, but I was running at him so fast that when I slammed into him, I knocked him off his feet. He swore and tried to get back up, but I just stomped on his face. Without stopping to ask questions, I picked my brother up and ran as fast as I could back to our house. By this time, it was pitch black outside and my mother was home. She was frantic with worry, and when she saw the look on both of our faces, she realized that something bad had happened. As I explained, my brother and I started crying, and my mom gave us both the biggest hug ever and cried with us. Number 6. How I lost my finger. When I was 7, my mom asked me to deliver something to a neighbor. It was very dark that night, and there were no streetlights. I could barely see anything. On the way home, I came to a bend in the road with big bushes on both sides. All of a sudden, I heard a loud rustling behind me. When I looked behind me, I saw a tall, dark figure emerging from the bushes. I started running. I could hear a man's heavy breathing close behind me. I ran as fast as I could, but he was gaining on me. I dodged to the right and took a shortcut through the hole in the row of the tall bushes. I reached the driveway of my house and heard him crash through the bushes. He was still after me. When I got to the front door, I caught my pinky finger on the screen. I was so terrified, I rushed inside and slammed the door shut. I locked the door and screamed for my parents. I didn't notice my finger was missing until my mom gave me a big hug. My dad ran out with a gun and tried to find the guy, but he was gone. When my dad came back, he found my finger and put it in a bag of ice to take to the hospital, but they couldn't reattach it. A few months later, in a neighboring town, a boy about my age went missing while walking home late at night. Then another went missing a few months after that. They were never heard from ever again, and I can't help but thinking if I hadn't been so quick on my feet, I might have suffered the same fate.